So you've gotten to get to know a super cool, beautiful Eastern European woman. And now for a lot of guys, the hard part comes. How to have great, stimulating conversations that eventually point the interaction in direction of a more intimate romantic relationship. Or do you end up like a lot of frustrated chumps, boring the heck out of her so that she loses interest? Which is it gonna be? That is the topic for today's video, helping you have great conversations with the super beautiful, the 9s and 10s, the Olympian level of beauty here in Eastern Europe. By Ekele.
SAR Experience.
I think your weird coffee is one of the most interesting things.
No, it's not a weird coffee, it's tasty.
What did you put in the coffee, Lera?
Orange juice and espresso.
Yes.
But
So you destroyed the espresso with orange juice.
Yes. Or I destroyed orange juice with espresso, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You took two perfectly beautifully tasting things and then made them mix them together to change it.
But
Something
you
else.
know, I'm not the only one. They just making this stuff here. That's why it means that I'm not the only one person who drinks it.
So let me preface all this by pointing out that your tone, your intonation, the rest of your body language, your energy level is also really important in terms of communication and having great conversations. Now, just very simply, the biggest mistake probably that guys make if they're dealing with, probably all women, but definitely the 9s and 10s, the uber beautiful, is that they pedestalize them. They think they're up there like goddesses and they bow down, genuflect before them. That is a huge turnoff for women, so you need not to do that. On the other extreme, being an obnoxious misogynist, also not going to be a turn on for most women. So try to avoid those two extremes in terms of your communication. So on the one hand, you don't want to be the average beta bug, pedestalizing the girl, looks thirstily seeking her validation. On the opposite side, you don't want to be like Amrou Fudel, aka Myron Gaines, being obnoxious and a misogynist, and then saying that everybody should settle for soft sixes because, you know, the 9s and 10s, they're terrible people. Said no guy who can regularly get 9s and 10s, believe me.
Most of them are not worth the effort. Get yourself a girl that's average, a little bit above average, you know what I'm saying, as a main, right? Or a girl that's gonna be because those girls tend to be a little bit more useful.
So, first point that's really important is make it fun, make it lighthearted, flirtatious, teasing, all great stuff. And if you're like me, I used to be a lawyer, like you have a profession that isn't the most exciting in general, like an accountant, an IT geek, then stay away from talking about work unless the girl is in a similar social hierarchy to you. For example, if I were the law professor or the partner at the law firm and I meet a law student, a first-year associate at the law firm, then I'm in a social hierarchy for sure, and I am part of that tribe and I'm in a higher position in the hierarchy. Then talking about work, playing that up, going to be pretty powerful. If the girl works in a beauty salon, talking about being a lawyer ain't going to cut it. It's going to bore the hell out of her. So basically the key thing is don't be boring. Easier said than done, especially if you're an IT geek, I've noticed in the past, but also lawyers and accountants often guilty of that as well. Don't do things that are super predictable. Don't be like every other guy. That's why I always say this going for the dinner date is so predictable, and then we'll go out on 3 dinner dates and try and break her home. Most guys have already done that. She's seen it 100 times. Not going to be super interesting to have another guy who just wants to sleep with her and does the same routine. For example, you always see these cringy pickup artists. They walk around here in the streets. I actually saw one guy walking earlier looking thirsty and then basically pursuing a girl down the street. And typically they start with a very direct opener and a compliment, which pedestalizes the girl. Like they'll say, hey, I just saw you over there. You look so beautiful. I had to come over to you. Or you look super cute. Boring. The girl has heard that so many times before.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm just here because you look fucking cool and I want to say hello.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm James.
Kate.
Kate? and you matched your nails with your dress.
Guys come over all the time. You're put in that kind of category of the thirsty guy looking for her attention and trying to get into her panties straight away. Better to make an observation and then build on that with some conversational threads. For example, I was out with my client here in Almaty on Saturday night, and there was a girl at the bar beside us, and I noticed her ring on her finger. I had noticed her before. She was attractive, and instead of opening with, "Hi, I'm kind of from Ireland," or "You look so cute," I was like, "That's an interesting ring. Is it a Star Trek theme, right? It looks like that." Basically, she wanted to talk about a ring because she invested time into it. It's not really important, the opener. It's better to have an observation. It gets the conversation going. Of course, you can segue back to about style or her style if necessary. But it wasn't even the case in this conversation. She started asking me why I was in Kazakhstan. The conversation goes on and on and on and on. Then she asked me for my Instagram. So basically, you need to make it interesting and not do things that are predictable. Maybe that wasn't even the most interesting example, but it's better than being boring. So yeah, I have a friend who's pretty charismatic at these things. He loves, probably if you met a girl here, he started probably playing some music and dancing salsa with her in the street and mad stuff like that. I can criticize a lot of things about him, but boring he is definitely not. That's going to spike emotions, and that's what you want to be doing, is spike the girl's emotions. Can be negative as well as positive, but should be slightly more positive than negative in general. But you don't want to be boring and flat emotions with a girl, not going to get her excited in the conversation or about you. And also, you need to make it relatable. Coming back to that theme about work. So if you're an IT geek, like one of my clients is, then talking about your work is going to bore the hell out of her, unless you can make it relatable. So he's working on developing applications for smartphones. I asked him what applications are there. Boring, boring, boring. Shopping app? Perfect, right? Every girl is going to relate to a shopping app, right? You can find things within your work, your lifestyle, your hobbies, your interests, your passions that are relatable. And that is important to have some rapport with the girls. So definitely talk about stuff that's of interest. Also things that are going to demonstrate value. Now, it can sound a bit arbitrary. It's basically what appeals to have value to the girl, the person who you're having the conversation with. For example, as a polyglot, as a guy who speaks a lot of languages, a language geek, I speak over 10 languages. And that's an accomplishment that most girls find impressive. Most girls have tried to at least learn English or one foreign language, and the fact that I speak over 10 is quite an impressive accomplishment in their eyes in general. Now, the actual process by which I learned those languages is boring as hell. And if I started talking about how I actually learned the language, she'd probably fall asleep and get completely disinterested. But the fact that I have some stories around why I learned the languages, because I was interested in the culture, I traveled to the countries. They're obviously going to ask me, if we're here in Almaty, I only speak a smattering of Kazakh, but I do speak fluent Russian. Why is this Irish guy who's come all the way from Ireland, why does he speak Russian here in Almaty? What's the story behind that? And that brings me on to another little point. If you do speak the local language, it's going to be a lot more powerful in terms of having great conversations. Because in the words of Nelson Mandela, you can speak to a man, well, in this case a woman, in a language he understands or she understands, and it'll go to her brain. If you speak to her in her native tongue, then it's going to go to her heart. And I've seen this a lot with Ukrainian. I do speak better Russian than Ukrainian, but if the girl is a native Ukrainian speaker, especially with the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian war, then obviously you're going to have a stronger emotional connection. That's going to make the conversation appear better or great than it would otherwise have been. Now, I need to have a caveat to this, which is if you don't speak the language particularly well, then that's going to cause a lot of problems, especially here in Eastern Europe. Why is that? You could just speak a few little expressions. That's probably going to spike her emotionally and get her interested. Oh, that's so cool, you speak a little bit of Kazakh. Oh, that's so cool, you speak a little bit of Romanian, Belarusian, Ukrainian, whatever it is, Russian even, right? Just learned some Kazakh. So, Mahan, cocktail, Potenish, Berenis. Wow, okay.
Я говорю по-казахски. Зараз.
The problem is when you go past and you actually try to have a conversation, and because men here, well, more than the West, need to have that real man mindset, that be the nastoyashi mujik, and direct and lead and be assertive, it's pretty hard if you don't speak the language very well. You're gonna be struggling for words, you're gonna be thinking, you're gonna break eye contact just because you're gonna be thinking a lot more than you would say if you're speaking in your native tongue, or if you speak the local language really well. Like for me in Russian, I don't really have that problem. But for example, I once went out on a coffee date many years ago with a girl who had actually published a book in Belarusian, right? A language that not very many people speak. And I actually do speak it, but at the time I didn't speak it particularly well. I spoke it on maybe an A2 level, which is, if you know the European Common Framework for Languages, is kind of like high beginner level. So when we switched from Russian to Belarusian, because she knew that I spoke Belarusian, or I had said that I speak it, I could see within 2 minutes of the conversation her attraction starting to dip. Because what was I doing? As opposed to when I spoke in Russian, where I was confident, assertive, was able to be funny. Belarusian, I was struggling for the words, I was hesitant, I wasn't particularly charismatic, my eyes kept darting up this direction because I kept searching for the words, and I realized this girl's losing interest for me, even though I must be the only foreign guy ever bloody learned Belarusian, and she even published in it. So I switched back to Russian because that was going to be to my advantage. So in my experience, unless you speak the language really well, then probably best to just stick to some expressions, to express your interest or to demonstrate your interest in the local culture and language, not be the normal tourist that doesn't care and just thinks all the locals will speak English. I'm just thinking of Andrew Tate there in that ridiculous video. Meant probably should have worked on his Romanian. Now that he's got those legal problems in Romania, might be learning it the hard way in a prison cell pretty soon.
Most languages are a bullshit language. English is the international language of the world, it's the language of the internet, it's the language of movies, it's the language of music. Everyone in Romania speaks English, basically everyone speaks English. And if you go to a country and someone doesn't speak English, they're probably a fucking idiot. So if I go to China and I try and talk English and they can go, oh, I don't understand, because they sweep streets, they're stupid. Well, stupid people don't speak English. I don't need to talk to stupid people. I want to talk to smart people.
Either impress them with a few expressions and then switch back to English, where at least you're going to be assertive, assuming you speak English very well, probably if you're speaking this video, and only when you go up to B2 level, which is like a high intermediate, should you be having the conversations in the local language in order to maximize your potential in terms of, you know, creating rapport with the girls. I went through this process. I went on 100 dates when my Russian in particular was pretty poor, and basically a lot of them were pretty disastrous because I couldn't be assertive. But the upside was that I dramatically improved my Russian through trial and error, like with most languages. So that is what I will say about the local languages. Is to see it's something I'm passionate about, as I am a language geek. Make it relatable. Don't start talking about how I actually learned them, which is like boring as hell and a long process. So you can make it funny and say I learned them through dating beautiful girls like you. That's why I speak Russian. Warszawscy hipstery и это типа центр hipster культуры из Украины, из Беларуси, типа. So as a final point in today's video, you probably heard me speak before about the killer combo, which is where you can combine kind of the real man mindset of Slavic guys in general with the more fun and playful attitude I think a lot of Westerners have. You put that together, you have the best of both worlds. I actually had a consulting client here who was originally born in Zaporizhia in Ukraine, so he's a native Russian and Ukrainian speaker and grew up with that real man mindset in Ukraine and moved as a teenager to the US, where he learned to kind of have more of a sense of humor than the average Slavic guy tends to have, be a bit more playful and a lot more teasing than is the norm. And as a result, he has such a strong setup in terms of his frame and his ability to have conversations in a place like Kazakhstan. And of course, he already speaks the language, one of the two official languages, Russian here. Also pretty similar when I had a live stream on the channel of Alex Playing with Fire, Alex Vilenchik, who is born in Belarus and a native Russian speaker as well. So
I feel like I'm the perfect specimen to crush in Ukraine because I have an American citizenship, but I speak Russian fluently. So yeah, that would give me a massive advantage.
100%.
Focus on trying to remember both of those elements are important for having this killer combo, and then you're set to go. You'll even be able to outcompete the Slavic guys at their own game. So there you got my insights garnered for over 10 years and probably thousands of dates, having not so great conversations all the time, but eventually better and better conversations with the super beautiful of Eastern Europe. The 9s and 10s, that expression drives the male feminists who come across my videos absolutely delirious. They get so angry and they leave so many comments. So, what are you doing next weekend? Because I just spent a few weekends here in Almaty, the almighty Kazakhstan, with a client who is actually planning to set up an office for his IT business here. So we weren't just partying with the uber beautiful local ladies in Almaty. We're also doing some serious work, because the Zara experience is not just about hanging out with hotties. It's also your first step to setting up an optimal lifestyle of abundance and freedom here in Eastern Europe. And the first step is down below. It is the application form for the Zara experience. Now, it's not for everybody. It is by application only. I vet everybody who comes in to the program to live the Zara experience with me personally, because you will also get exposure to my crew, my social circle, whether it's here in Almaty, the almighty, the amazing city just off the steppes of Central Asia. Also can be in crazy Chisinau, where I spent a lot of the summer of 2022, about to fly back there on Saturday. Mad Moldova, it was really a phenomenal summer there last year. Also, I've been going to Riga on the Baltic Sea, further to the north in Eastern Europe. Absolutely stunning. Also, lots of leggy blondes. Tall as hell are the girls and actually the guys of Latvia, and it's the region with the most blondes in the world, most blonde hair, if that's your cup of tea. And also, I've been going to Warsaw in Poland, which has now got 3 main communities, because you have the pretty Poles, the cute Ukrainians, and the beautiful Belarusians. So I have been setting up a super strong social circle there, and it's a real VIP experience, the Zara experience. It is not some, I don't know, throwaway matchmaker, pickup artist, malarkey, none of that rubbish. It is designed to be your first step as a high-value guy here in Eastern Europe, to put you on track to live that dream lifestyle full of freedom, abundance, phenomenal value for money, and of course, to date the 9s and 10s. Maybe even marry a model at the end of it. Many of my clients have been dating in long-term relationships with models. As Wayne Gretzky said, a Canadian of Belarusian origins. Appropriately, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. That's my guess. Ice hockey's like that when you're striking the puck. So down below is the application form. Before you do that, be sure that you have watched 2 very important playlists. They are the first one, Dating the 9s and 10s. It's like a series of tutorials like this video has been. It's actually part of that playlist series, so you understand the mentality that you're going to need here. In fact, you have my entire vodka vodcast playlist that you can watch for, it's like probably over 50 hours of content if you really want to dive deep down into the mentality of people here in East Europe, in particular in the dating culture. I'll link that up above on a card down below in the description to the video. And then you have my playlist for the cities where I live, the Zara experience with my clients. Also got a few client testimonials in there, so you get a better flavor of what this unbelievable and unforgettable weekend is going to mean for you if you come here. Again, it is by application only. That is why I have an application form, because it's not for everybody, and also you get exposure to my crew here in the city in Eastern Europe, my social circles, so I don't want to invite just about. So now that you're not going to bore the hell out of the pretty ladies that you might get to meet when you come and live the Zara experience, there is the application form. Take your shot, and it could be you with me in a city in Eastern Europe really, really soon. And be sure to do it now, because I'm rolling out Zara Experience 2.0, so the current price level is not going to stay much longer. After this video goes out, there will be increasing dramatically, because I looked around at the competition in this kind of manosphere space here, in particular in Eastern Europe, and it is astronomical, the gulf between what my clients get, many date models, and what the rest of this so-called industry is doing, basically pitching at best 3s and 4s and 5s towards their clients at, you know, 20K for 5 dates and all this ridiculous stuff you see with the matchmakers. Anyways, enough said about them. I have enough videos calling out that insane malarkey that they're up to. The sun is already setting over the horizon here in southern Kazakhstan, in Almaty. So I'll bid you a do svidaniya and see you very soon in the next video. Ciao, ciao.
SAR Experience.